Hi everyone, it's me, Fran. I went to my local Fenwick Beer and Wine. It's in Silver Spring, Maryland. The owner's name is Suleiman. He's super, super awesome. And all the wines in his store are from vineyards he's actually visited. So
Nice.
it's pretty, it's not like when you go to your regular wine store and you see all the usual brands, that you see in pretty much every single wine store. Most of the brands you'll see in his store, you've probably never seen before because these are very specific to his travels. He's a super nice guy. He's got the best workers. Um, everybody's pretty nice there. It's pretty awesome. Anyway, today, we're drinking a wine that was showcased. It's every Friday from 4:30, I think, to 7:30. He does a new wine or a wine tasting. So this is one of the wines that they had there, and I thought it was absolutely delish. It's called The Nest. It's from New Zealand, and the type of brand. Oh, so the type of wine is a Sauvignon Blanc. So it's Sauvignon Blanc by The Nest, and I'm gonna rate it today. It reads on the back of the bottle: palate and aromas of passion fruit, blackcurrant bud, and gooseberry, followed by a palette of fresh tropical and citrus fruits with balanced minerality.
Ooh.
Ooh. Not too much big words. We love. Great marketing. Super easy, super quick. Love, love, love. Obviously had an American marketing company help them out. Good for you, New Zealand, you tiny little island in the middle of nowhere where nobody lives. Population 2.
Anyways.
So it's 12.5% alcohol by volume, so it's pretty alcoholic for wine. And we're gonna do the taste of Sauvignon Blanc by Lake Challenges The Nest or whatever. Lots of words on the bottle. Might want to change the.
But before we do all of that, we need to get the smell, the coloration, and the taste.
All right, so the smell. Oh, God. Okay, so it's a bouquet of like passion fruit. You can actually smell passion fruit.
Wow.
When you smell it. Yeah, it's the first thing I smell. I smell a lot of passion fruit, and I'm a huge fan of passion fruit. So good on you. Like Challenges The Nest, or this Sauvignon Blanc smells so good.
Nice.
It's a bouquet of citrus fruits. It's just beautiful. Smell this.
Whoa.
Tell me that does not blow you away.
That's a 4 out of 5 easily.
Easily, right?
Yep.
Easily. I'm gonna give it a straight 5. It does not smell like most wines. When you smell it, it smells like alcohol. Like it's a rubbing alcohol citrusy smell in America. This wine from New Zealand just smells like straight fruits. It's just beautiful. You can tell this was actually made from mostly fruits and not processed crap.
Gotcha.
I'm gonna go for the color.
Color's beautiful. Has a straight marking on the top, so I'm going to give some points up, but it's not too much. It's beautiful. It's crisp. It's early morning vision. Mm-hmm. So for me, I would give it a 3 out of 5.
I think it's a gorgeous, clear, beautiful Sauvignon Blanc. It's doing everything for me. I'm giving it a 5. It's gorgeous. It's clear. It's got none of that nasty oil spill at the top. It just looks really good. It's almost like looking at water, except it's wine. It's clear, clear, clear.
Nice. So, how about the taste? And I'm not tasting.
I've been drinking it all weekend.
So I'm not tasting. I'm having my mimosa today. So.
Let me tell you.
Wonderful.
This wine is so good. It's a straight 5.
5.
New Zealand, I don't know what's in your soil. I don't know what kind of fruits y'all bear over there, but they are healthy and delicious.
Well, that's good to know.
Lake Challis The Nest. It's Sauvignon Blanc from New Zealand. 5 out of 5. Highly recommended. It's about $20-something. It's not super expensive, but not super cheap, but definitely worth your money.
Nice.
Cheers.
All right. So, Fran, what topic are we talking about today?
So I was taken away by a comment that someone made on Fox News about current vice president and current presidential candidate, Kamala Harris.
Mm-hmm.
And what they said about her was so shocking that I really had to kind of dig deep into my own little feelings and ask myself a certain question.
Mm-hmm.
And the question is, does America hate women? Are we afraid of strong women? Like, what is the deal with the way we view especially very powerful women like Vice President Kamala Harris? And why is it that they're so heavily disrespected? The commentator on Fox News, I don't even know their name because Fox News is just an abysmal channel. It offers absolutely no information to anyone. It is a lot of posturing and really, I don't know, just stupid comments most of the day. They have a couple of anchors on there I could kind of stand every once in a while.
Sure.
But for the most part, it's not an informative news station. And I get it. MSNBC is... It's definitely like a little bit too far to the left for me sometimes. But at the very least, I am not there listening to them tear down presidential candidates the way they are tearing down Vice President and current presidential candidate Kamala Harris. One of their commentators basically said that Kamala Harris is the original Hawk Tuah girl.
Okay.
And if you don't know what Hawk Tuah means, just think to yourself what you think it means and why anybody would say that about a woman as powerful and as advanced in her career and as dignified as Vice President Kamala Harris. If you don't know what Hawk Tuah means, I actually had to go online and dig it up because I said, I think I knew what it means, but I don't really think anybody would actually go there. I just was like, it can't be what I think it means.
Okay.
Hawk Tuah essentially means what Donald Trump would have been enjoying with Stormy Daniels as she was on her knees trying to earn those $300,000 that she eventually got paid to not tell on him that he was sleeping with a porn star while his wife was basically pregnant and about to go give birth to his fourth, fifth, or sixth child with his third, what's probably going to be future baby mama or whatever, right? Hawk Tuah is essentially fellatio, oral sex, dick sucking, right?
Okay.
They called Kamala Harris the original Hawk Tuah girl. And the reason why they say that is because I've heard it before amongst other, super duper Republican friends that I have, where they say that she slept her way to the top. And that's the only reason why she's vice president of the United States. And for the life of me, I just was so lost in the comment. What do you think?
So for me, I've always... Okay, I'm not going to say that. I never always disliked Kamala Harris. But from the comments that you tell me, I'm falling asleep. And the reason why is because okay, maybe it's a generational thing. Maybe I'm just watching too much YouTube and TikTok and Instagram. I've heard this before, and I'm like, oh, man, that sucks. That shouldn't be said about a woman. And then I move on. And also the fact that, like, it sounds desperate, to be honest with you. So it just sounds like one of those things that a guy says in a bar when a girl turns you down. Well, you're a slut anyways, or like, well,
you're ugly anyway. Yeah, it's so true.
Which is logical because you hit on her.
And then she turns you down, and then you feel kind of stupid, so you say something dumb.
Yeah, so this whole comment statement is completely stupid, but I kind of want to go into a little bit of a further dive deep into the topic. So do women have a very, very stressful and hard time in America? I, if you guys look at me and my anatomy, I am missing breasts.
Missing breasts?
I am missing breasts,
What are
and
you
I have
talking
hair
about?
on my face, so therefore I am a man. So I
Right.
wouldn't have a lot of experience being a woman and the difficulties of being a woman in America. So, but I do just want to say that I do see a lot of change in America. I do see a lot of mindsets that just work completely different than the past 10 years ago, than the past 10 years. In fact, 20 years. I'm seeing a lot of people finally getting to a certain place where, like, the politics is starting to clear things up a little bit of who's exactly are we going to be rooting for and who are we not. Because at the end of the day, like, well, you know what? I'll further give my points later on. But, Fran, go ahead and take it away from your mindset and point, and how would you like to drive this conversation?
So, thank you for bringing that up, that it's hard to be a woman. I'm going to play one of the things. Actually, you know what? I'll play it a little later. My sister gave a comment. I asked several of my female friends to send me a comment as to what it is to them is hardest to be of being a woman. All right, what's the hardest thing for them they find so far in their life about being a woman? One of my best friends from high school, I know her for about 30 years, Teresa, basically said that the hardest thing for her so far really has been just dealing with menopause. And the funny thing about it is I know her very well. It's not just menopause. She's a full-time mom, okay? She's a full-time wife, okay? She cooks, cleans, she takes care of a family of 4. Every time I talk to her, she's either at the grocery store, cooking, cleaning, or working. All right? She always looks beautiful when I see her, which means she spends a lot of time also making sure she presents herself a certain way at all points in time, everywhere in her house, outside the house. She takes care of her mom. Her mom's not elderly, but her mom's a little older, so she goes and she does little chores for her mom. When I'm talking to her, I'm like, when does this woman rest?
Damn.
And all she said is menopause. And I'm like, oh my God, that's all you can think about is your menopause? You do so much more. You do so much for so many people. It's really hard being a woman. And the one thing I could kind of think of, like for me personally, that I kind of find hard being a woman is that women have to live in this kind of bizarro world where you want to be attractive, but you can't be too attractive. You want to be thin, but not too thin. The beauty standards are impossible. You want to be smart, but not too smart. You want to go to work and like appear to know, but not know too much. It's like we live in like purgatory. The standards for us are impossible on every single level. I'm 44. I'm exhausted of people asking me why I don't have children. I'm exhausted of people asking me how come I never got married. No one ever asks a 44-year-old man why they don't have kids, why they're not married. So I'm going to read a couple of things from a couple of articles that I found where it talks about women. And then I'm going to go into the women that have come in up and through the American system and what has happened to them on the way up and the kinds of criticisms that they have faced just being strong women and strong political figures within the American system, the type of things that people like talk and say about them. All right. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to read a couple things from a couple articles. This one's from Vogue. It's by Chloe Shama. From June 24, 2022, from the opinion section, it says American women, even before, it said, the article's name is Even Before the Overturn of Roe, American Women Were Being Let Down. Okay, it says, I'm writing this on my phone while nursing my 10-week-old with my 4 and 6-year-olds entertaining themselves in the other room. The 4-year-old has missed the past week of school because he caught COVID. 1 week after the FDA is taking its sweet time, basically, approved a vaccine for under 5-year-olds. He then passed it to his brother, who missed his last week of school. We're moving this summer, so he said farewell to his classmates via Microsoft Teams, peering at his friends from my computer, straining to hear their faint goodbyes. So this is during the time when COVID was still big and kids were still in school. Okay, so it says the United States has been feeling, as a friend recently put it to me bluntly, quite a bit like a country that hates women. School is canceled for a year, give or take. Those shutdowns don't happen. Give or take, these shutdowns don't happen on anything like a predictable schedule. The women will handle it. Goes on to say, perhaps it seems strange to be going on about formula given the news of the day. Basically, formula ran out of. There was a formula shortage, right? And it says, likewise, there seems to be a thread in the Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health Organization decision pointing to the idea that women these days can just have the baby and put it up for adoption if they don't want it. That seemed to be Justice Coney Barrett's implication during oral arguments. The court's opinion points to a laundry list of arguments offered by the anti-abortion movement to justify their position, more tolerant attitudes about the pregnancy of unmarried women, that federal and state laws ban discrimination on the basis of pregnancy, that leave the pregnancy and childbirth are now guaranteed by law in many cases. It goes on to say, when the draft of this opinion leaked, I saw a piece by Erin Carmen. It says, I too have a human form. Okay, basically saying, hey, like, it's not just about the baby, it's also about me too. I'm gonna read other little statements as we go along, but basically just look at this, what this article is saying. It's like during the pandemic, women were sent home, obviously, to work from home. And what do we have? We have women working from home. They were taking care of kids, obviously always taking care of their husbands, right? And then what happened also, I know this article doesn't talk about it, women were also taking care of their parents. They were taking care of their husband's parents. The woman couldn't catch a break. All right. And on top of that, there was a formula shortage. There were so many shortages of so many things. And it's like, who's at the head of these households in most homes taking care of business? Women. And what do we not have? This article talks specifically about how we don't have proper child care, right? I didn't read the whole thing. We don't have proper child care. We don't have proper maternal care. We have a high infant mortality rate, high mother mortality rate. Like, what's going on here? We don't have any proper supports. We don't have the proper help to even bring children into this world, but we're like damned because, don't have an abortion if you get pregnant too. Like I said, women here live in purgatory. We just can't win. We can't win. So from there, I hope you understand what I'm saying. If you don't, oh well. But I'm going to go through some pretty awesome women within American culture, within American U.S. politics that have impacted me. And, like I said, I watch a lot of news. I watch a lot of politics. So the women I'm going to talk about are the women that I have been very much influenced by and have been watching over the years. So Hillary Diane Rodham Clinton. All right. This is how her name appears on Wikipedia. I'm not going to go through the whole history because now we've gone through too much silly stuff. Hillary Clinton was the first lady of Arkansas. I think for 2 administrations in Arkansas. She has been married to Bill Clinton, first and only husband. They have a daughter named Chelsea Clinton. Bill Clinton was president of the United States in the 90s to I think like 90
from 1992 to 2000.
Okay, so he did 2 terms, and then his VP Al Gore could not secure or did secure, but they stole it. We can't never tell. We don't know. Eventually lost the election to George Bush too, and he definitely just destroyed the economy. But anyway, Hillary Clinton is also First Lady of the United States. She was First Lady of Arkansas, First Lady of the United States for 2 terms as well. Super duper famous woman. She went to, I think it's Harvard Law School. Is it Harvard? She went to an Ivy League law school where she met Bill Clinton. They fell in love, and they are 2 giant political party shakers. Tag team party shakers. They're big time people, big time political figures within the United States political system. They're big time Democrats. They've been in the political circles for, I don't know, like 30, 40 years, a long time.
Yeah.
But Hillary Clinton tried to run for the presidency and didn't quite. She won the election, but she didn't. She didn't
won the popular vote,
but she didn't win
but she failed to secure the electoral points in order to win the presidency.
Right. And I'll just explain that one more time. I know I've said it before. In the United States, all the states do not get the same amount of points within the electoral college, because it's basically won by population. The states with the biggest population get the most amount of electoral college points, and you need a certain amount of points to win the White House. So a state like North and South Dakota, or states like North and South Dakota, which have tiny populations, do not get that many points because there are not that many people that live there. Whereas states like California, Texas, Florida, New York, bigger states with, well, not bigger states, just states with bigger populations get more electoral points. She lost electoral points, so she could not secure the White House. Trump, 45, our crazy president, won in 2016. He was president from 2017 basically until 2021. All right, so that's Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton is not just former first lady, okay? She's also an Ivy League college graduate with law degrees, major accolades, a bazillion honorary degrees. She was also a senator from New York. She represented the state of New York for quite some time. And she was also Secretary of State under President Obama's administration. She ran against President Obama and lost. And so she had like more than enough experience by the time she ran in 2016 against Donald Trump, who was the eventual frontrunner for the Republican Party. And she couldn't beat him, all right? And part of the reason I think Hillary could not beat him, even though she had some shortcomings where I've heard certain things that, you know, she was a little arrogant about getting the ticket, and, you know, there might have been some fumbling at the Democratic National Committee and the National Convention where they kind of stole it from Bernie Sanders. You didn't hear that from me. But basically, she won the ticket, but there was some grumblings, and there were a lot of people that were very, very mad that she got the ticket, and she lost to none other than Donald Trump in 2016. And in 2017, Donald Trump took over and gave us 4 of the worst years in American history and 1 million dead U.S. citizens from the COVID-19 disease. Anyway, Hillary Clinton, however, even though she was First Lady of Arkansas, First Lady of the United States, Senator from New York, Secretary of State, logged the most amount of miles and met the most world leaders ever of any Secretary of State. All right. This woman worked harder than any other Secretary of State in the world, because while she was Secretary of State, our country was falling apart, and she needed to rebuild our national image. Okay. She went from country to country to country. We were in 2 major wars. Thank you, George Bush. Okay, this woman was doing a great and fantastic job. She has two major things that people will talk about for the rest of her life. And one of them is Benghazi. I'm not going to go into Benghazi. Google Hillary Clinton and Benghazi if you'd like to know about that. Super boring, super ridiculous. The thing that people talk about the most when they talk about Hillary Clinton is her husband's affair with Monica Lewinsky. Like, she was part of it. I find these things to be so disrespectful, because I think as a woman, people tend to ask silly questions that have nothing to do with anything, and they tend to make assumptions and or just connect you to your husband to the point where it's like, are my husband's problems and infidelities also my problem? Most of these Republicans and Democrats, I'm talking about men, okay? I'm not saying I know 100%, but I'm pretty sure these rich and powerful men in Congress have many affairs, all right? Some of them do make it to headline news, okay? Who are the men that had been caught in affairs that had to go and apologize on national television about affairs that they've had with women? I think I can name who's been caught up in an affair that had to apologize on national television about an affair. I know there's at least one person.
Yeah, there was like one or two people, but I cannot for the life of me.
I cannot and you know why it is?
I do know that there was that whole like.
Is it because they're men? That nobody cares?
But that's a whole different
okay. But Hillary is asked about a stupid question like that. But you notice how we don't remember those men. But there have been men. There've been the Anthony Weiner's one, but he's a Democrat. Mm-hmm. John Edwards actually number 2. He's also a Democrat. And there's been at least 1 or 2 Republicans caught up in abortion scandals where their mistresses had to have abortions. And remember, the Republicans don't believe in abortions, but nobody ever remembers these men because they're men. Nobody cares about what men do, but apparently everybody cares about what women's husbands do, which is just bizarre. Okay, so we're gonna move on along to the next woman I'm gonna talk about. Powerful women within the American political system and how we view them. Next one we're gonna talk about is Condoleezza Rice.
Okay.
Condoleezza Rice is an American diplomat and political scientist who is the current director of the Hoover Institution at Stanford University. A member of the Republican Party, she previously served as the 66th United States Secretary of State from 2005 to 2009, as the 19th U.S. National Security Advisor from 2001 to 2005. Rice was the first female African-American Secretary of State and the first woman to serve as National Security Advisor. Until the election of Barack Obama as president in 2008, Rice and her predecessor, Colin Powell, were the highest-ranking African-Americans in history of the federal executive branch by virtue of Secretary of State standing fourth in the presidential line of succession. She worked at the State Department under the Carter administration and served on the National Security Council as a Soviet and Eastern Europe affairs advisor to the President George H.W. Bush during the dissolution of the Soviet Union and German reunification from 1989 to 1991. Now, Condoleezza Rice is a very, very interesting political figure within the United States history. Condoleezza Rice, for all intents and purposes, to me, should have been the first black female president, and also she should have been, her or Colin Powell should have been the first black either one of them could have been the first black presidents of the United States. But for whatever reason, and I wonder what it is for Condoleezza Rice, they didn't make it to be able to run to be president of the United States. Condoleezza Rice, from what I've heard, could not run for the presidency of the United States because there was a scandal about her where apparently during Hurricane Katrina, as Secretary of State, she was at Bergdorf and Goodman like shopping while I guess people in Louisiana were drowning. Yeah. And for the life of me, I'm going to ask you, Marty, what does a Secretary of State do? What do you usually see a Secretary of State doing?
To be honest with you, I'm not really sure other than collect information and data about the nation.
Okay.
Bring it to the president in certain terms of the agenda.
Okay.
But that's as far as I know.
As far as I know, and I've never even Googled this, the Secretary of State is almost never even in the country. All right? The Secretary of State, I always feel like, is in another country. They're usually traveling and doing business overseas, right? And business in the sense of, as far as I know, a Secretary of State goes overseas, okay, and they make peace deals with other countries. I think they represent the United States on United States foreign interests. I've never heard of a Secretary of State really going anywhere within the United States to do anything. I've never heard of the Secretary of State come on television when there's a natural disaster anywhere and go there. When there's a forest fire in California, do you hear of Antony Blinken going to California?
Nope.
When there's a hurricane in Florida, does Antony Blinken go down to Florida?
No.
No, I have never heard of a Secretary of State having to do anything with the interior. The interior means the interior continental United States, Alaska, Hawaii, and whatever territories. The Secretary of State, as far as I know, is the representative of the United States, the President of the United States, and the people of the United States to the outer countries of the United States, whatever, other countries.
Yeah.
So when I heard that, I was like, no, they didn't want to let her in to be president of the United States. Probably because, one, she's a woman, and two, she's black. All right? Or whichever one, vice versa. Two double minorities, they didn't want her to have it.
So you think Condoleezza Rice would have been a...
Fantastic president.
Even though she was a Republican?
Fantastic. Let me tell you. One thing I liked about Condoleezza Rice is, okay, she's a Republican. I barely agreed with any of her policies, barely agreed with anything that she had to say, but she was what I would call a regular Republican, unlike these Trumpy Republicans that are out there these days.
Sure, what we're talking about.
She was very steadfast in her beliefs, and I liked watching her. Okay, look, as a black woman, there was very few female black, powerful representatives within U.S. government when I was growing up in the early 90s and so on, right? I was like, I said I was 12 when I came here. Bush 2 came in, but Bush 1 was in power. Condoleezza Rice was in his administration. She was one of his, I think, advisors at that time. So, and then she continued after Clinton. She came back, because if you follow politics, administrations just basically recycle people to come back over and over again. If Kamala wins, basically the same people within the Biden administration are going to stay right in place, and they might change a couple people here and there, but not really. But if Trump wins, he's basically going to recycle all his old cronies and felonious friends, and he's going to bring them back. So anyway, Condi was in, and they call her Condi, by the way. Condi Rice was in Bush 1 administration and the Bush 2 administration. And I thought she was a formidable candidate, and she could have definitely been a presidential candidate. And the only thing I think that held her back was, the biggest thing is, I think it's because she's a woman. Okay. Colin Powell was talked about being able to run and or being kind of pushed to run for the president of the United States, but I never really heard anything about Condoleezza Rice being pushed to run for the office. And the only reason I heard that Colin Powell did not run for the presidency is because his wife said that there were so many death threats coming to their house after they even leaked that news that maybe he would run for the presidency, that he said, no, I can't run. The other thing, of course, if you know anything about Colin Powell, he was Secretary of State for some time, and he went to the United Nations and put forth some information that has been found to be mostly bogus about the weapons of mass destruction in Iraq that turned out to be not definitely true. So that's one of the reasons why also he probably didn't want to run, because that was a major scandal in the end. But mostly they didn't. His wife didn't want him to run. That's what I heard. But I never really heard of the Republican Party pushing for Condoleezza Rice to run, even though Condoleezza Rice would have been a formidable candidate. Don't you think?
No.
Why?
So,
is it because she's a woman once again?
Are
you anti-woman?
The mere fact that you're my best friend should already tell you I have no real issues when it comes to women. It should tell you that I'm very politically
sexist.
Oh my God.
Mean-spirited.
I'm very politically involved. Mm-hmm. So, because you keep bringing her up, forgetting the fact that she was attached to the Bush presidency, and everyone attached to that presidency had a snowball's chance in hell to win a presidency at all. It's why John McCain was the one to run for president, because he had nothing to do with the presidency. So I am going to agree. Like, if it wasn't for that, yeah, she has a lot of potentials to have become president material. But the problem is that she was attached to the Bush presidency. That brought a lot of stain on her career. It brought a lot of stain on Colin Powell's career and everyone else that was attached to the presidency of George W. Bush, because of the whole F up that did for Hurricane Katrina, for the cutting and slashing of taxes and everything, which brought up the deficit. The whole Iraqi war that was going on at that time, as well as the economy crashing in 2007, 2008.
Absolutely awful.
So everything that was attached to that was going to be a plague that was going to be attached to everyone involved in it.
Right.
So I'm not saying this just because I hate women. I don't hate women.
I know you don't hate
women. I need women in order to exist in the first place. So
thank you for bringing it back to that, because we're asking ourselves, the question is, does America hate women? Not you in particular, Marty. But it's, does America hate women? Are they afraid of powerful women? Do they hate women? What is the deal with America and women? With that, I'm gonna talk a little bit about Nancy Pelosi. She was Speaker of the House twice. Once within the, I want to say during the Clinton administration. When was Nancy Pelosi?
No, it was under the Bush administration.
Okay, so Pelosi was Speaker of the House during the Bush administration, and then why do I feel like she was also Speaker of the House during the Obama administration for a little bit?
No, she wasn't.
So then she was Speaker of the House again during the Trump administration. Yep. Nancy Pelosi is the most formidable and the most effective Speaker of the House within, our lifetime. She's pushed through major acts of legislation that's helped millions and millions of Americans. And she's pushed forth a lot of democratic policies into place. And she's basically one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful woman within the Democratic National Party. She is the person who basically threw Biden off of the rails and threw him under the train, the bus, off the bridge, into the get out of this presidential race ditch. Okay, Nancy Pelosi was on MSNBC, essentially on a morning Joe, and Mika and Joe basically asked her, do you think Joe Biden should get out of the race after his abysmal performance during the first debate with Donald Trump for the 2024 election? And she basically said Joe Biden should do whatever Joe Biden thinks is good for him. That's essentially what she said, and nothing but about 24 to 48 hours later, Joe Biden was out of the race. Okay, Nancy Pelosi is one of the most powerful women within the Democratic Party, and she basically made that happen. After Nancy basically said that, I heard Obama kind of went and told him also, like, look, it's not working. If Nancy says it's a no-go, it's basically over. Now, with Nancy Pelosi, one of the interesting things about her is, after the 2020 election, when Donald Trump lost, she was one of the people that the rioters, insurrectionists, basically coup mongers, these coup d'etat individuals were after. Yeah. They were after a few people. It was AOC, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, and
Mike Pence.
And of course Vice President Mike Pence, who has not endorsed,
So yes, this woman has a lot of power.
This woman has a lot of power, but the insurrectionists wanted to get Nancy Pelosi. They went to her office and basically, I think they went through her files and folders, and major felony, by the way, not allowed to do that. I think her office might have been the one where they also took a dump. Not sure, don't quote me, but they took a dump somewhere. It might have been in Nancy's office, and I'm just saying, what is it about Nancy Pelosi, okay, and AOC that American Republicans do not like? Why do they want to? Why are they honing in on specific women? Is it that America hates women? And I'm gonna quote something from AOC, by the way, because we know the Republican Party hates Nancy Pelosi with all their heart. All right, this is AOC on Dayton247now.com. All right, This is an article by Alec Schmel on September 7th, 2022. It says Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who is also a member of the progressive cohort in Congress known as the Squad, said that while she believes anything is possible, her experience has given her a front row seat to how deeply and unconsciously, as well as consciously, so many people in America hate women, and in particular, women of color. She said, people ask me questions about the future, and realistically, I can't even tell you if I'm going to be alive in September. Do you know why she said that? Because while the insurrectionists were in the Capitol doing their mayhem, they were looking for her. And she was hiding in an office with some coworkers, basically scared shitless. And the day after that happened, she went onto TikTok or one of these forums on social media and cried her heart out about how she felt while she heard people in the hallway calling her name, looking for her to kill her.
Damn.
With that, we're going to go into the history of
women's movements in
the
America.
women's movements within the United States. I think it's a good way to kind of like show you how women have been treated in history.
So I kind of want to go real quick about it. So basically, women's movements as well as abolition movements actually go back hand in hand. Which, in terms of the fact that's how the first women's suffrage movement kind of came into play, because a lot of women didn't like slavery in the first place. They thought it was immoral. They had a lot of sympathies and everything, but to a certain point, there was a couple of meetings in which women were barred from attending.
Okay.
So those particular women started gathering their own little sessions, and it no longer just became about abolition, but it became about women's rights in the first place. One of those first major meetings was the Seneca Falls Convention, in which 300 women showed up in 1841, which really launched off what we call the first wave of feminist movement.
Okay.
So during the progressive era, so that kind of went astray. There was a lot of issues between the women and their duties during that time. Of course, we're talking about the 1840s and 1850s. So a second wave occurred during what we call the progressive era, which became from the 1880s to the 1920s. And of course, a lot of major women showed up in that path. In fact, a lot of them, again, women's movements and other special interest movements really go hand in hand during that time. One of which was the changing of senatorial elections, in which it no longer became a responsibility for the Congress. It became part of the state's elections now. Also, the other thing is what we call the silver versus dry movement, or the what we call the prohibition movement.
Okay.
A lot of women got on board to that one as well. Because a lot of women, guess what? A lot of women had abusive husbands because they were drinking a lot. Alcohol led to a lot of broken families and homes. A lot of women wanted securities and guarantees from the government as well as from their state, in case that something happens or if they have to leave, that they would be taken care of as well as the kids. Women were the housemakers. And when the men were poisoned by this thing called alcohol, there was a lot of debilitation against them. So a lot of women's movements went hand in hand with the prohibition. Another special interest, sort of social movement. And that pushed so far movement, that progressive era was so I would say so climactic that it led to two major amendments being put into play. The 18th Amendment, which is the women's suffrage amendment, which made it legal for women to vote.
Very nice.
As well as the 21st Amendment, which is the prohibition of alcohol. Was it the 19th or 21st? It was one of those two. I don't know. But basically, it wouldn't have happened without the help of women.
Right.
So that movement kind of died down. Now women were able to vote in elections. They were able to even hold power. in a lot of states and hold positions in the political sphere. So another third era happened, which became from the 1960s until the early 1980s. That was the third wave.
Okay.
So we're talking about hippies, we're talking about the Black Panther movement, we're talking about the feminist movement, about burning the bras, about women's liberation, about the sex movement in which people wanted to liberalize and experiment and all that stuff. And a lot of major publications started coming out. A lot of movies and art forms started really ramping up during that time, especially from women. Really from women. But that moment wasn't viewed favorably just because the fact that what was supposed to define that era and what was that main goal was the ERA, or Equal Rights Amendment.
Wow, Marty, you're really going deep.
Thank you. But the problem is it never passed. And it was because that era, that wave, was really disorganized. It was very disorganized. We're talking about the hippie movement. We're talking about the Black Panther movement and Black individual rights and all that stuff. We're talking about women dropping in and dropping out. We're talking about college campuses protesting against the Vietnam. But this sort of era started actually converting the United States to go to a conservative tipping point.
Right.
Which really revealed itself in the 80s and early 90s.
Okay, so I'm going to stop you there. I'm going to give you women's history in a nutshell. Basically, long time ago in a faraway place, women were viewed as property. And when I say viewed as property, always remember that within the United States, you're going to take black women and put them in another category because we weren't even considered people. Or black people here were not considered people. They were considered, 3/5 of a person. So when I say, when I'm talking about women's history, understand that black women are always like a whole lot farther behind than white women. All right. So when I'm talking women's history, consider it more of white women's history. All right. Women were considered property. For example, if you got married to a man, whatever your father had, the man you married inherited it. Okay, a woman's place was in the home. She was supposed to make babies and essentially create a family, cook, clean, and bow down to her husband, who is going to basically give her the life that she's supposed to, I don't know, create, whatever. Okay. So I'm gonna read from his book called American Women, 400 Years of Dolls, Judges, Helpmates, and Heroines by Gail Collins. This is a quote from the book. She said, during the colonial period, the average woman gave birth to 7 children, and visitors rode home in amazement about the size of the families. But beginning around the 1800, American households began shrinking steadily. So do you hear that? Women gave birth to 7 children. 8 children. That is insanity. This is about the middle class black women. Okay, remember I said black women are always super duper far behind them. It says here, the emotional burdens on middle class black women in the 9th century were stupendous. The barrier of prejudice separated them from white people of similar taste and education, and they had almost nothing in common with the mass majority of other African Americans who were still unschooled and rough. All right, this is on physical appearance. The physical ideal of turn-of-the-century American woman was the Gibson girl, the creation of illustrator Charles Dana Gibson, who himself became a celebrity thanks to her popularity. Like the Gilded Age beauties, the Gibson girl had a full bust, hips, but her body was thinner, firmer, elongated. She was tall, often dressed for sport, and she appeared to be wearing comfortable clothes. Although her waist was so tiny, there had to be a corset somewhere. The New York Herald admired her wholesome athletic air that does not smack too much of athletics. Anyone remember Barbie? These are just a few quotes from this book. Not a lot, because I didn't really read the book. I kind of skimmed through it. But you kind of see where we're going, all right? Women's history within the United States is very complicated, but it's also it's very complicated, and it's even more complicated for Black women. And here comes in 2024, Kamala Davy Harris, and I promise we're gonna wrap this up. And I'm gonna give you a brief history on Kamala Davy Harris, future president of the United States, and we're gonna wrap the show up. All right, so Kamala Davy Harris, 59 years old, is an American politician and attorney who is the 49th and current vice president of the United States since 2021 under President Joe Biden. She's the first and only woman to make it to vice president of the United States. She was president of the United States for a brief period while Joe Biden went over some medical procedures at NIH. I think it's the NIH. Where does the president go when he needs medical? So she has been president before, in case you do not know. She's the first female vice president, making her the highest ranking female official in U.S. history, as well as the first African American and the first Asian American vice president, because she is also of Indian descent. If you don't know, Indians are actually Asian, South Asian specifically. I know some people don't even know that. And a member of the Democratic Party, she served as a U.S. Senator from California from 2017 to 2021, and earlier as the Attorney General of California. Harris is the Democratic Party's nominee in 2024 for the U.S. presidential election, with her VP, Tim Walz, from Minnesota. Born in Oakland, California, Harris graduated from Howard University. She's also an AKA, whoop whoop, and the University of California College of Law of San Francisco. She began her law career in the office of the District Attorney of Alameda County before being recruited to the San Francisco DA's office. Her father is Jamaican. Her mother is Indian. She's married to Doug Emhoff, who she co-parents 2 daughters. Kamala Harris, as you can see, I've just read through her credentials, is a formidable candidate to be president of the United States. And what does Fox News have to say about Kamala Harris when they want to go to the lowest common denominator? What do they call her? The original what?
Outdoor girl.
Okay. And
What we said in the beginning.
The idea that somebody could say something like that about someone who is so accomplished. And I don't care who this person could have been. It could have been Hillary. It could have been Condi. It could have been Gretchen Whitmer, by the way, who was also almost a VP pick by her book True Gretch. All right. They almost killed her trying to get her. Gretchen Whitmer is the governor of Michigan. Okay. Do we hate women? I don't know. Do we? What other governor have they tried to kill that's a female? I'm just saying.
There was another, but we'll get to that.
I'm not going to get it today. But okay, but I have a few questions, and then we're going to end the show today. Why do we judge women so harshly, Marty? Why is it that you're so cringed by Hillary?
So, as I said before, I don't think Americans are very nuanced in their thoughts. You demonstrated exactly what the issue is.
What is it?
So, when I said I have an issue with this particular person, you saw gender.
I was gonna scratch your eyes out.
Yeah. I don't know if you understand this, but there's this thing called nuance, right? So nuance is this thing where there's a complexity behind a topic or a point or an idea. Mm-hmm. And so when I cringe when it comes to Hillary Clinton, I knew for a fact that she was a very weak candidate from the start.
Oh my God.
From the jump point. The way that she conducted herself throughout 2008 against Obama and saying those horrible things against him. The things that she did against Bernie Sanders during the election, and her inability to really focus on the essentials and the basics and the importance of running a candidacy, instead of just thinking that she's going to be handed the presidency, because she was not well liked. I don't know if you remember that. She wasn't very well liked. She was just a little bit more liked than
Trump? Mm-hmm. Oh, God.
So I don't know. So when I'm talking about a person, I'm talking about a person. Mm. When I'm talking about a topic within this show about Hillary Clinton is not just the fact that she's a woman. She's just a very weak candidate who happens to be a woman. When you mentioned Condoleezza Rice, it wasn't because that she was a woman. It's because she was attached to a presidency that was toxic. Condoleezza Rice, when you put her on paper, she actually flies a lot of good grades.
For the Republican Party.
Sure,
She
but as a
was
candidate and as a politician,
representative of the Republican
sure. But
Party.
let me get into the essentials. Condoleezza Rice would have been, an interesting candidate to run. As I said, the problem is we were facing a recession, and she was attached to a really, really toxic presidency. But if she was just running on her own, she probably would have been a very, very strong contender when it came to 2008. But let's move on to a whole other thing. I personally, when I see the status of women when it comes to politics in the United States, I think a lot of nuance gets lost in the sauce, and we tend to talk about them when it comes to people, but then there's other people, such as yourself, who sees that and says, how dare they say that about a woman?
Absolutely.
Now, the comments when it comes...
I'm sticking up for my gender. Hello.
Yep. Now, when it comes to the comments that Fox News says, that is absolutely misogynistic, by all terms.
It's absolutely ridiculous.
Absolutely.
Ridiculous.
When they talk about her being as a DEI candidate, that is disrespectful because they're talking about her race.
Oh my God.
They're talking about how stupid or how dumb she is, that goes against her intelligence, even though has shown over time, no, she's actually a pretty shifty, she's a smart, intelligent woman.
Yes.
So
she's a formidable candidate.
Yeah, she is. And to me, I see the United States changing a lot. Good. Because we have a lot of women in Congress. We have a lot of women who happen to be governors and state secretaries.
They're running one. It's not happen to be.
No, I said who happens to be. And I see that that has changed in the past 20 years. Mm-hmm. And the people who have issues with that either have a hard time keeping up with the present, are still stuck back in the 90s, or are outright misogynistic.
Right.
So I see the candidacy of Harris right now as being a huge potential right now because, one, she's a strong candidate. Two, she's going to run on the policies that are for reform. Yeah. This country needs a lot of reform. The other thing that goes into your strength is that we've seen Trump, and we've seen how he talks, and we've seen how he handles himself. Nobody likes Trump.
We're not talking about him today. Let's let that go.
Kamala Harris has something that the other two candidates...
She has joy. Oh my God. What a breath of fresh air.
She has something that the other two candidates that just really didn't have, and that's popularity.
Joy.
People didn't really like her.
She's a joyful warrior.
People didn't really like Hillary Clinton.
Her heart.
People tolerated Biden.
Okay.
People actually like Kamala Harris. And what's better is that she's demonstrated how intelligent she is by making these tactical choices of what to do right after she announced her candidacy. Who did she pick as vice president? Tim Walz. She chose a candidate for the vice presidency who is lovable, who is a proven governor, who is a veteran, who has demonstrated to care a lot about his people in his state, who has demonstrated to over and over again, he understands politics while being grounded at the same time. She has demonstrated, let's pick a popular person from the Midwest. That's going to get a lot of votes. That's going to change the narrative.
And he surely has changed the narrative.
And she's also indicating to the quote-unquote liberal voters, not the liberal voters, but the quote-unquote liberal voters, that basically saying, hey, this isn't going to be an all-color presidency. We're going to have a white guy as well, just like me and Biden. There's going to be equal representation in our candidacy. And that's
is that a DEI hire, Marty? Is that what you call it?
I would just call it a strategic
It was a great move.
I would just call it a strategic move.
It was a great
and
move.
It's brilliant because it's worked before. It's worked under Obama and Biden. It's worked under Biden and Harris, and it's working under Harris and Tim.
Yes.
Because the thing is that they're demonstrating, hey, we're not just the party of black and white and like women and men.
We're also for the working class.
We're also for the working class. We're also for the wealthy. We're also for the middle class. We are America.
Well, who's for the wealthy?
The other candidates. Anyways, point is, what I'm trying to say is that
the Democratic Party is not.
What I'm trying to say is that Kamala Harris has demonstrated that her candidacy actually represents America.
It's for the people. Period.
Yeah.
But not the wealthy. Please vote for your Republican candidate if you're wealthy.
Anyways, we got a candidate who's from the coast, and we got a candidate who's from the Midwest. Where you got an equal representation of everything that America is and loves. So
love it.
It's not the fact that like, okay, I'm not gonna say that America doesn't.
I like the way you put that.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
I'm going to say that women still have issues when it comes to a lot of things in America. We still have the whole abortion debate going on.
Oh
we still have the preventative measures in order to clean the whole way. We still have a long way to go when it comes to that. But overall, it's just taken a long time for the United States to get to this point. Because I think what it is that we tend to enjoy a lot of things when it comes to the conservative world. Low taxes, a traditional mindset, certain values that we think we can uphold, even though we fail constantly every time.
Who likes that?
I think America has this perspondence or this vision or this like ghost of itself into thinking like, oh, I'm the average Joe of the 1950s and I can do it all on my own and maintain my wife and everything, but we don't do that. We can't do that. We haven't done that since the 1950s.
Capitalism killed that.
The 1950s was a special place and a special time and a special condition.
Mm-hmm.
Women are in the workplace now. Women have to be in the workplace now. Mm-hmm. The politicians who are saying that women shouldn't be in the workplace don't pay the salaries of the men who are married to these women enough to make that happen.
Right.
It's true. Like, you can't go up there and say, oh, women should be back in the kitchen and should be housemakers and all that stuff. But at the same time, you're refusing to push measures and policies that would make it possible for their husbands to maintain their women at home.
Thank you.
I have conversations with you and other girlfriends that in my circles. You know what they say? I wish I didn't have to work, but hell, ain't nobody going to like support me. I have to support myself.
Right, I do have to support myself.
And even if you got married, a friend, if my girlfriends got married,
quitting my job.
Here's the thing. Their men would say the same thing. Hey, listen, we can't do this or no. I'm going to need you to work. I'm going to need you to pick up a part-time job.
Sad truth nowadays,
and that's just what it is. We live in a world where
women and men have to work.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's good. I don't know it's bad. All I can say is that we live in a reality in which we need to understand what we're living in and take the measures in order to do our best in order to survive. And for the fact that like the United States has taken 20 years to finally get to this point from the 1990s, and the reason why I'm declaring the 1990s as a certain staging point is because even though the 1990s was a very progressive decade,
we made a lot of money in the United States in the 90s.
We had a lot of like backwards views when it came to not just gays and blacks and Hispanics and all that stuff, but women in general too. There was this whole clinch that happened right after the 2000s in which women dropped off out of politics and into the corporate world and all that stuff. And it took kind of a while for them to get right back up there. And I can see that the world has finally changed. And that women, just as much as men, need to do whatever it takes to survive and to make changes in this world to make it into a better place. I think the United States of America is getting to the point where they're tired of an old white man trying to tell them what to do and seeing that the results are not changing. And that's the representation of Trump.
I will agree with you on that, and I will just say that I think women in America, like I said, are stuck in a purgatory. It's a purgatory spot.
Yeah.
It's like you want women to not have access to abortion, But you want them to also work and support a family along with their husbands, that you want them to work pretty much until the day they die, because who can even support a family nowadays? So you want them to have kids, but you don't want to support them enough to have kids. You want us to be beautiful all the time. We have to be attractive. We have to be nice. We have to be kind. We have to laugh at your stupid jokes. We have to do so many things as American women to be able to be able to exist comfortably. And I'm just gonna put it out there. As someone that has grown up here, I'm very uncomfortable being a woman. I'm stuck in so many weird different spaces that I just find myself trying to morph into every little freaking thing that everybody wants me to be, so that I can make everybody happy. And I think that's what it is to be an American woman.
Yep.
You have to, like, want to be a conservative but not too conservative. You want to be a Democrat but you can't be too liberal. You want to have a family but, like, you can't be too feminine, because then if you're too feminine then you're a pushover. I don't know where we really exist within the American experience. I feel like we exist in an area that is, like, impossible to really exist within, because none of where they want us to exist in this country makes any sense. And with that, I feel like I'm going to conclude with, I'm really proud that Vice President Kamala Harris is the candidate for the presidency of the United States. I hope that what Fox News has done by calling her that ridiculous, stupid statement, whatever the hell that is, it's beyond misogynistic. It's beyond disrespectful. It's beyond the pale, as they say in the news cycle. It's so low. It's so weird.
It's so denigrating that even women in the Fox News network are like, oh, no.
No, they're there with it.
I've seen women also, like, saying, like, stop attacking her just because she's a woman. Attack her because she's liberal or something. We're sick and tired of it.
Attack her policies, as they say. Talk about what she stands for. Calling a vice president / candidate for presidency because she's a woman, I'm basically a cocksucker, is so beyond disgusting.
It is.
You would never call a man a big pussy eater. You would never call him a big old clit licker.
Okay.
You would never call him the original squirt catcher.
All right.
No, you wouldn't. Okay. Marty, you wouldn't. Because nobody even talks about men like that. But because she's a female candidate, people think they can say stupid things like that. Yep. And because she's black, people feel like they can denigrate her to the point where they're almost like, what is she, Stormy Daniels? If you said that about Stormy Daniels, I would still defend her, but at the same time, it just wouldn't be as much just because of what she does. Do you see what I mean? Like, why are you bringing Kamala down to that level? Right. Why? What is it about her?
Right, I understand.
It's disrespectful. Yeah, it's low, and Fox News do better.
Yeah.
All right. There's a lot of other things you can attack her on. I'm gonna end the show with America does not hate women. We are uncomfortable around women. We are uncomfortable around powerful women, and we're just. What do you think? Are we uncomfortable? Are we just uncomfortable people?
No. I think it's just what we call growing pains. That's it.
Are we growing as a country?
Yeah.
Are we going through a metaphor? What's the word? Metaphor? What's it called in that movie, The Fly? Are we turning into something else?
Shit. I know what you're talking about. I can't remember the term.
Are we turning it from a caterpillar to a butterfly?
We're transforming.
Are we turning into from a man into a flag? Or we're pieces of shit? What are we doing here?
Anyways, at any rate, let's close this off here. I would say America is changing. America has going through the change. Even we got to this point where, like, we're not even upset or, like, surprised that she's a woman. We just are happy enough for her to be young, to be intelligent,
vivacious,
competent, and positive, versus
formidable,
the fear and loathing
incompetent,
and angry other guy. And that's all that matters, because America deserves the best of the best, no matter who you are. Because at the end of the day, all that matters is the green in your pockets and the red in your heart.
And the wine in your glass. Cheers, y'all. Ta-ta. Bye.